Hello and welcome back to the fifth and final edition of True Grit Down Under, a ThyGap special on the Border-Gavaskar series between India and Australia in 2020-21. My name is Bogus Noog, and very happy to have you here and to be joined my co-host
Being Brute.
Brute. Amazing special we have going on so far.
Yep.
We've covered the journey from the pre-series scenario to Adelaide through to Melbourne, Sydney, Gabba, and now this is our post-series review.
It's been a pretty eventful journey up till now. The turn of events, the ups and downs, bad luck that came across, and fight backs. So it was a true mix of roller coaster emotions across the series.
Yeah, and as we covered in the previous episodes, what made this series special to start off with is the fact that this was a test series being played against Australia in Australia. Now, why is that such a big factor, Brute?
There's no great hero without a great villain. Australia as a cricket team is probably the most sought after. Basically, you beat the best to become the best.
Yeah.
And Australia has managed to be the most villainous antagonist.
Yeah.
Right? The strongest antagonist ever. Because they just always find a way to win a match or win a series.
Yeah.
Always almost seem to be unbeatable. Even today, Australia is considered the toughest guys to beat. And then we are trying to do that 2 times in a row in Australia, which is an even bigger task.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Back to back, that too.
And look at the kind of grounds that we play in. Sydney, extremely hostile crowd. Melbourne, the most intimidating. Gabba, which is the ground at which Australia hardly ever lost.
Yeah.
So that's what makes playing in Australia against them a very big task. And to top it right now, I mean, which is your favorite piece, is the kind of PR support that they get, the kind of noise that they can make out of the ground also, right?
Yeah. I mean, they've become such a litmus test for any team going there. And it's not just because of the cricket they play on the field, but also all the games that are played off it.
Yeah, the mind games. I keep forgetting. What is the...
Mental disintegration.
Mental disintegration. I don't know who... I think it was Steve Waugh, right? Who started the term.
Steve Waugh.
That we will mentally disintegrate you might.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why, Australia is a very tough competitor.
Yeah, and they hate losing. Like anyone from 50 kilometers away looking at them can tell that these people just hate losing. And that just lifts the standards of the entire game as a whole. And the fact that they've been this litmus test, like you said, a good hero is nothing without a good villain.
Absolutely.
Muhammad Ali had a quote about George Foreman, or was it Frazier? I think it was Frazier.
It's Joe Frazier.
Yeah, Joe Frazier, that God bless this man because he always pushes me to my limit.
Yeah.
Something like that. Paraphrase makes me better than I am every time.
Yeah, and so is with Nadal and Federer's rivalry.
Oh, yeah.
So is with Messi and Ronaldo's rivalry,
Yeah.
right? They all openly accept that, hey, if it was not for Messi, God knows how much of myself would I have discovered. Like, you need a duel between Shane Warne and Sachin to prove who is the better.
Right.
That is why we don't have a problem with all the nonsense Australia does. Because end of the day, they juice up the game that much more.
Regardless of the result of this series, regardless of the scandals they've been a part of, and the whole banter versus abuse nonsense that they try to pull, and where the line is and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Still,
the line is so far beyond that it's a dot for Australians. Like, I mean, the whole thing, I don't know, you mentioned it actually, about the time when Steve O had like a earpiece when he was on the ground and he was getting instructions from the dressing room. Yeah, it's so weird. And Australians always do something weird like that.
They always do something
They always
weird.
kind of go a little out of the box.
Yeah.
Where you don't know, is this legal? Is this ethical? By the time you figure out, they kind of win the match. Like,
they can't seem to process how cameras work.
Yeah.
And when you hit the record button.
They're oblivious. Considering a team which has such a strong PR, they are guys who are kind of oblivious to,
the whole camera stuff.
Yeah, they're watching us, dude.
Yeah.
They can listen to us, like all these things.
Yeah, but the basic point was that regardless of all that nonsense or white noise, as Justin Langer would like to call it, they still deserve a lot of credit for holding that standard and raising the standard, raising the bar of the game as a whole.
And the beauty of it is across generations of teams, consistency that they maintain in bringing out extraordinary talent. I think that is a testimony to what a strong contender they are.
Yeah. And so we wanted to take stock of who ThyGap would consider the champions of this series. And we're talking about champion spirit.
Champions by heart.
Yeah, champions by heart. And
We basically got this idea from that Instagram post where it said they might have lost the match, but they won our heart.
yeah, or the game won in the end.
Game won. Whoever won the hearts.
So we're looking at why these players are champions in our book and who they are. So, Brute, let's start off with you.
Okay.
Let's start with Australia.
Manas Labuschagne, top of the shelf. Pat Cummins.
Let's go with why. Manas, why?
Manas because, okay, obviously the consistency with which he played.
Yes.
Finally got his century, but he had to work really hard for that. It was not given to him. Thanks to the Indian bowling, nothing came easy for him.
Yeah.
But he showed grit. Essentially, he played with a lot of heart.
He
right?
put a price on his wicket every time he came out.
Every single time.
And even when he got lucky, he made use of those chances.
Yeah. And also, irrespective of the result, right? He gave his 110%. And that extra 10% came in the form of in his fielding, when he's fielding close to the batsman, the amount of pressure he tried to put, right? Obviously, he didn't do a great job about it.
But effort.
He at least applied himself, right?
Yeah.
Which was great to see.
He tried to get the team going. There were not many of them in Australian outfit that were doing that.
Yeah, and he probably was the only glimpse of that Australian brand of cricket. And he did a great job about it. So for me, from the Australian side, he's one of the champions outright. Second, I would go, and there's no order, right?
There's
You're
no
not
order.
going in an order of, okay. So then the second guy I would definitely say is Pat Cummins.
Pat Cummins, champion of champions.
Champion of champions, highest wicket taker of the series. Well deserved.
The heart
with which he bowled, especially that Gaba test in the final day. Every single time Team Payne looked at him, I think Pat Cummins was already standing at the top of his mark, saying just give me the ball, I'll bowl. No matter how old the ball is, no matter how bad the wicket is, no how strong the batsmen are playing, just didn't matter. He just kept running into the crease time and again without losing an inch of the pace, without losing an inch of his accuracy.
Yeah.
And by the way, I don't know if you know this, Pat Cummins was actually one of the guys who was injury prone.
Oh, okay.
Early in his career, he started his career long.
Oh, yeah, I heard about this.
But he kept on getting injuries. So the amount of work he might have put on his fitness must be exorbitant, right?
Yeah.
And that showed because on the final day, when he was bowling in the last 10 overs and all, you still felt that this guy can do something.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe, right?
Yeah.
He might just take those last 3 wickets in a hurry.
And it's funny because recently an interview came out, Pat Cummins on Cricinfo, and he was saying for the Gaba test, which mind you, he had already bowled hundreds, like a lot of overs until by the time he got to Gaba. But he was saying on the final day of the Gaba test also, he still had a lot of energy left in the tank.
So Pat Cummins, an obvious choice. Steve Smith.
Now, why Steve Smith?
I know you were kind of like wanted to jump on the question. See, the thing is, it's a very debatable thing, but I'm going to give my personal take. He had 4 bad innings.
Yeah.
He had Ashwin in his head. He accepted it. So many things happened in the first half of the series, right? No matter what people say, if you're already in the Fab 4.
In terms of test stats, he's ahead of the rest of the 3.
Yeah.
His average is in the 60s.
And you're not able to perform in one of the most talked about series of the year. You can only imagine the amount of pressure he might have had to deal with.
Yeah.
Because Warner and Steve Smith were the guys who Australian team were like looking badly for them to come back.
Yeah, they said we lost the last series because these 2 guys were not.
So imagine the kind of impact he has,
right,
on the team's overall performance. So he would have been easily blamed for, you know what, we lost this just because of him. He didn't even have the burden of captaincy. All he had to do was come and perform, blah, blah, blah. Take all these things into consideration against a decently formidable bowling attack, which ended up to be a decently formidable bowling attack. And he somehow manages to clear all this off from his head, right, in a span of a week or 2, and then come back and score a brilliant century and not just leave it to that. He kept scoring runs after that, which, in a matter of 4 innings, he ended up becoming the 2nd or 3rd highest run getter of the series.
Yeah.
And the best part that I liked about his comeback in the series itself, after the 4th innings he played, where he got bowled around his wickets of Bumrah, he never got out to a cheap ball or a wrong shot. He got out for really, really good balls. And that for me is again reinstation of he being a champion. Why he's a champion player.
For me, the champion moment came when, first of all, he admitted in public that Ashwin got to his head. And that is a huge thing for a guy like him to come out and say.
With the reputation he comes with and all that, right?
And then any mere mortal, any normal, ordinary player would sign off that series series basically,
Right.
and say this series is done. I'm just going to work on it after this series,
Yeah.
and I'll be ready for the next one. But this guy, he takes only a week to figure out what was wrong and correct it himself, because Justin Langer made it clear that no one coaches Steve Smith; he coaches himself.
Yeah.
So for him to do that all by himself,
Yeah.
and come back and turn it around like that.
Which is what I mean. This is ThyGap Gyan, by the way. All champions know what it takes to be a champion.
Yeah. Cameron Green?
Cameron Green, yes, but we are not having an order, right? Okay, I was kind of trying to place him in an order. Yeah, Cameron Green, absolutely yes.
Brilliant
For me,
fielding.
I think extremely well applied potential to whatever opportunity he got. 2 innings that stood out for me is the one where they were trying to declare and he had to kind of like up the tempo and he just went berserk. Didn't look out for his personal milestone, which kind of tells him he's a team player. He was at 87 or something where he went for a shot, kind of got out. And after that, I think he played a pretty good innings of around like 40 odd runs until Washington Sundar got him out. I think it was in
Natural variation off the pitch.
Off the pitch, kind of just stood onto his line, completely misjudged. But I wouldn't pin on him. But that innings, it's also, I think he played really well. I think it was mishandled by the team.
In the bowling department.
Which I would have loved to see, because whatever little he bowled, I felt that, okay, this guy is pretty good.
Yeah.
And McGrath kept saying, he's just bowling it a little too short. But that catch he took off Pant, which came off the face of the bat, it's a very fucking tricky catch. He fielded in some tricky positions. He fielded at point and gully, and then I think in the cover regions or someplace.
In the course of the series, he's taken 2 or 3 amazing catches. Really low.
In a series where a lot of catches were dropped, by the way.
Yeah. And catches which were very low off the ground.
Right.
Just amazing to see.
And he's a pretty tall guy again. He's about 6'6" or some shit.
Yeah.
And overall, I think, yes, Cameron Green is definitely a champion for me, at least in the context of the series. The last one from Australia, according to me, which is extremely debatable, but it's a special mention from our end, is Matthew Wade. Horribly mistreated, but what I liked about Matthew Wade the most, he never gave up. I think he was a bigger testimony of the brand Australia cricket, where even if things were falling apart around him, he kind of stood strong with that attitude, with that mentality. He gave that fight back to the opposition, right? Maybe with batting, maybe with his short leg fielding, or wherever he was present, whenever he was given a chance.
And like Manas, he was the only other guy in that team who was egging his team on, trying to give keep the energy levels up. And he was the only guy who was trying to neutralize the banter that was coming from the other side, from Rishabh Pant. And even though they kept moving him around positions, he still showed fight every time.
I personally think they should have let him open the innings. Also,
they should have just given him some sort of safety or reassurance and trusted in him, because it seemed like he just could not settle because of what they were doing with him. There was no feeling that he was settled and he was ready to go. It always, like you said, puppet.
With a loose string. Yeah, it was just like, we'll just put you there, but we're not really bothered about what you do. It kind of, I think it was very harshly treated. And the fact that it was dropped after the series,
that's worse.
It's salt on the wound type.
For no fault of his.
And he could have done better from his batting, but purely on the way he played the game, I will give him a lot of champion points.
And especially for that one innings where he's not a test opener, but he stuck and he made a 40 and played a lot of balls. Yes, he played a loose shot and it flew up in the air. There's probably one technical flaw that he has to work on, but as far as the application, the attitude, the fight, it's all there.
He did what was needed most of the times, I felt. But it's okay. Like, even when he came lower down the order, he played a pretty decent 40 when Jadeja got him out just before lunch or something. But the thing about that innings, that 40, was how he dealt with Pant in the session before that. I felt like, okay, now Australia is here. But then, alas, it ended with Matthew Wade. Just all whoever came, it didn't like really show us that, I'm a dangerous guy.
In terms of aggression and body language, he was the only guy reminding you of that Australian,
of the old Australia,
the Australian way.
So, but that's about it. That ends the list on Australia, right? Everybody else were kind of inconsistent, or probably were not up to their potential.
So as far as champion spirit goes, these are our champions from the Australian squad, who we still consider winners, despite the fact that they lost.
Remember, they might have lost the series,
but they won the hearts.
They won hearts. Okay, that's what this segment is about. about from the Australian side.
And
But
now let's look at a very short list.
absolutely
the
short list.
Indian side champions.
Okay, so it's a very short list.
Very short.
Again, without any order.
Right.
Shubman Gill, Cheteshwar Pujara, Rishabh Pant, Bumrah, Mohammad Siraj, Washington Sundar, Shardul Thakur, Ajinkya Rahane. Who else am I missing?
Ravi Shastri.
Bharat Arun, the whole
Sridhar.
support staff, Sridhar,
the physio.
Ravichandran Ashwin, Ravinder Jadeja.
Yep.
If I have not said them.
Navdeep Saini.
Navdeep Saini, yes.
Bumrah.
In his own sense. Bumrah I've already covered. Come on. They won and probably the toughest chance. I mean, they had the least probability of winning the series.
Yeah.
And if you have to pull it off, you have to do what you have to do, right? You have to do champions work to win such a game.
Hanuma Vihari.
Oh, I apologize.
Yeah.
Hanuma Vihari. So I think it was the whole team in itself, including the support staff. And you can even take Umesh Yadav and Shami, but they lost out on injury, again. But everybody, right? I think majority of them have contributed in one way or the other.
A majority of them.
A majority.
Yes.
It's basically, if you count this itself is a team of 11.
Yeah.
Now, it's a very tough thing if you have 11 champions in the team for you to lose a series.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this question, Bogus. Who do you think missed out? Let's start with the Indian team because it's tougher to point out the guys who missed out on the glory, who were there, but kind of missed out on the glory.
Kind of missed out on being that champion spirit. Or
who could have got the champion badge, like good behavior badge. They could also have gotten. I mean, they did get the medal and the title.
Yeah.
But from a personal front, who do you think missed out?
So from the Indian team, the first name I would take is Rohit Sharma. Rohit Sharma missed out big time because the amount of expectations that he was carrying, it just showed when the whole country just cried out in anguish when he got out Gabba first innings.
The 44 runs, the way he scored.
But when he came to Gabba, it was like, oh, he's had starts. He's looking good. Rohit is due.
It's just a matter of time.
It's just a matter of time before he charges his bill, and on Gabba, the flow. The flow he had in that Gabba innings, it looked like within 5 minutes he's going to be 150. Like I can't go pee because Rohit might make a century because he's 40 now. But if by the time I come back,
it might be 140.
It might be 140, and we know that's how he goes.
Yeah, Rohit definitely yes. Not just because he didn't score runs, because he was in such good form.
Yeah.
Even in the first innings he played at Sydney,
he was always.
He just
in
looked
good
like
knock.
dude.
Yeah.
And out of 4 innings, he gave away his wicket twice. The second big miss out,
Mayank Agarwal.
Yeah, absolutely. All your counterparts not there. The previous season's record is backing you up and just didn't do enough.
Yeah, but in his defense, yes, it would have been great if Mayank would have played in Sydney because of the pitch, but he did come back in Gabba and he still kind of missed out in Gabba as well.
Loose shots once again.
Yeah.
I don't think he got out for good balls. I would have cut a flag for him if he got out for really good balls.
Yeah.
But I think he just kind of gave the wicket away. I still don't have any bones to pick with him.
I know, me
as
too.
a player.
Yeah.
But I just wanted him to do well.
I thought he would.
I exactly.
I really thought he would.
Anyone else in your mind? I have one more name.
You go ahead.
Prithvi Shaw. He's coming from a series of failures and the management still put faith in you. Forget about making an impact. He hardly played an over. And the thing that kind of irritates the shit out of all the guys who are rightfully disappointed with him is he's a guy who's got talent. But unfortunately, for some funny reason, the one flaw that he has and which has been called out so many times by so many players.
Yeah.
So many senior guys. Ricky Ponting called it out. Rahul Dravid called it out. Probably every decent bowler called it out.
Your fly is open. Your gate is open.
Your gate is open.
Everyone's been saying
post office is to be shut.
It is not 24 hours.
Yeah, it's not 24 hours. And he had a golden opportunity. Fine, he kind of failed in the first innings.
Yeah.
The fact that he got out in the exact same manner.
And he struck a pose also the second innings.
The second time he almost was like, at least get me now. Like, take picture. You didn't take a good picture of my flaw before.
This is your chance.
That's why I couldn't really get my flaw.
Yeah.
So take the proper picture now so I can kind of study my flaw.
Yeah.
So I think Prithvi Shaw, huge miss out because that one test probably would have changed his fortunes if he would have even scored a decent 50. He would have gotten another chance in Melbourne, and Melbourne would have been probably a better place for him to bat because the bounce of it and so many other things. So huge miss out was Prithvi Shaw.
But this is going to be slightly awkward because I'm going to wholeheartedly and sincerely disagree with you, Brood, because I don't think Prithvi Shaw missed out at all. Because that one moment where he mistook Rohit Sharma for 3 stumps.
Yeah. That was the final nail in the coffin.
And he hit Rohit Sharma.
And then
that was the series for me. He didn't miss out.
That was a seal deal. That had the wax seal put on his career, like right there. Because Rohit Sharma was like, Tirko malum hai na, I'll become the captain someday.
How do you mistake Rohit Sharma for 3 sticks?
Sticks.
You cannot mistake Rohit Sharma's 3 fingers also for 3 sticks. Forget his whole body.
Yeah. And to top it, Rohit Sharma was wearing a hat. Rest all are missed out because of injuries, I felt.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I wouldn't really count on it.
But before you go to the Australian team,
there
is an Australian champion that we forgot to mention. David Warner.
Oh, yep. He was a true champion, dude.
True champion. Clear-cut injury. Even an injured David Warner coming back to the team raised their confidence. You can imagine what effect he has.
All I can think of when I saw that guy defend the ball and run, and you could clearly make out that, dude, this guy
absolutely
can't
uncomfortable.
Yeah. And he's probably at 30% of his natural pace. And he's obviously struggling.
And mainly we're talking about the second innings of the Gabba match where they had to build a lead.
Yeah.
And it was Warner. Through the injury, through the discomfort, he played such a beautiful innings to get them to that start.
Yeah. I don't care about what the stats say about David Warner. I might have a soft corner because he's in Sunrisers Hyderabad.
He is
the team I support.
Yeah.
Obviously.
David Bhai.
But nevertheless, the fact that what he was ready to give, you never know in a game like this, at a level at which they play, it can be a career-ending injury.
Yeah.
Especially when you're not fully fit. And he was ready to risk it for a mere 2 test match.
And risk a big paycheck with the IPL as well.
So many things. I mean, there's a parade of things that he could have lost. But he was ready to put all that at stake just so that his team can restore some balance.
And if that is not champion spirit, I don't know what is.
I don't know what is.
So now we come to the Australian side of people who missed out.
Nathan Lyon. Everything was there.
The stage was set.
The script was written.
Your landmark 100th test was going to be in Brisbane, where your team had not lost for the last 32 years. And you were getting close to your landmark 400th wicket, which by the time they got to Brisbane, it looked like Brisbane could have been the place where he got his 400th wicket. His family was in the stands. Everything, the script was just written for
All
him.
he had to do was say his lines and get out of the stage. But alas, nothing taken away from the opposition, the Indian team, the way they handled them,
the way
especially
he prepared, the way they prepared for Nathan
Lyon, especially Pant, considering his likeliness for
getting
spin
tempted.
bowlers and getting tempted and all, and also a little blame on Tim Payne for probably missing out. Having said all that, I just felt Nathan Lyon didn't create enough chances. He didn't look lethal. He didn't look menacing, and he didn't look like a champion bowler that he is. So purely going by the reputation he carries, he didn't do enough, and he missed out big time.
And all you got at the end was a t-shirt.
Yeah, which is also like spoiled with
this guy spoiled your series, this guy spoiled your series.
It's more of like salt on the wound more than appreciation. But nevertheless, I felt like Nathan Lyon missed out big time.
The biggest.
Yeah.
Who else do we have on that list, bro? Australian players who missed out on glory.
It's a parallel to Prithvi Shaw.
Okay.
Joe Burns.
Yes.
Joe Burns.
Long lost brother of Prithvi Shaw.
Half
Shaw. Half locket.
Yeah. I'm sure they would have like held hands and walked on the beach.
Yeah, I mean,
dude, I go through the same. It was like watching Judwa movie.
That's what I was going to say. Like after the first test, like 2 innings, they both looked at each other and said, Bhaiya.
It's like one Salman Khan does, the other Salman Khan does exactly that. So, Joe Burns, I think again, he had some skeletons to bury. Beautiful opportunity.
Yeah.
Home conditions had everything behind him.
And coming into the series, he was actually going well. But just unfortunate.
Just couldn't do enough. The only peach of a delivery was the one which Umesh Yadav bowled.
Oh, yeah.
That was, I wouldn't consider that.
That was
he had 3 good innings where they had not a lot of pressure.
I mean, the only innings he played was in Adelaide after 36. And there was no pressure at all for them to win.
Yeah. So Joe Burns, definitely.
Who else?
There are a bunch of other players. But again, it's a grey area for me. There is Mitchell Starc. Who I felt was somehow in the same session, in the same spell, he looked like like two different bowlers.
Yeah.
After that brilliant over that he bowled to Mayank Agarwal, I'm like, where did that bowler go in the second over?
Yeah.
Because almost immediately he didn't look lethal at all.
In that over, he looked like he could wipe out the entire
Yeah,
squad.
and that was a worrying sign I felt for Mitchell Starc himself, because he's such a beautiful bowler. The pink ball test he bowled like a fucking charm, and then you couldn't see him anywhere. You just saw him in as if like a guest appearance. He would come, bowl that one brilliant over, and then go off again. And at the end of the series, it showed that it took a toll on him, that he just became a bad bowler. I mean, they were scoring at about 5 runs per over against him, and that was a bad sign. So I think it's a grey area, but I would definitely put Stark also in the same list where he missed out. The other guy,
The big kahuna. Let's go for it.
yeah, the big miss out from the Australian side was Tim Payne.
TD Payne.
Tim Payne missed out from a batting standpoint. He missed out from a strategic standpoint. He missed out from a tactical standpoint. And most importantly, he missed out even from a wicket-keeping standpoint.
Yeah.
So every department where he was supposed to contribute, he just didn't do enough. After being the man of the match for the first test match, that too.
And he had a series to win back.
What bothers me is the way because Tim Payne is not a bad captain. If you go a little into his past, here is a guy who revived Australia's brand of cricket from that whole ugly incident of Sandpaper Gate.
Yeah.
Took the team to the number one position, won the Ashes, won against New Zealand, which is a very formidable team in the current state, by the way.
Yeah.
And yes, they did lose the last series with India, but at least we saw a fight from them.
Yeah, and even in that revealing documentary, The Test on Amazon Prime, if you watch Tim Payne and how he conducted himself, you could see that this guy was empathetic for his players.
Yeah.
He cared for the team, and he was really there for the team.
He looked like a guy who has a sense of what is man management. He looked like a mature guy, basically. He didn't look like a guy who would lose his way so easily.
But there is something peculiar, bro, when you observe what India's misses were and what Australia's misses were. It's a totally different pattern.
Absolutely. When we look at the guys who missed out in India, which is Rohit Sharma, Prithvi Shaw, Mayank Agarwal, actually no bowlers, by the way, which is a rare feat. Generally, the bowlers are the guys who miss out from the Indian side.
A list which included net bowlers also.
Net bowlers also. Even Natarajan, he's a bigger champion than anybody.
Yeah, that guy is.
Right. But the thing I see is when you look at the misses of the Indian team, it is purely their own accountability.
Individual.
Like individual kind of irresponsibility, if you have to say it in a way. But when you look at the Australian side, when you look at it from a distance, okay, Nathan Lyon didn't bowl really bad.
Yeah.
But it is almost like he was not allowed to bowl the way he wanted to bowl. Okay, Tim Payne is a guy who actually thinks out of the box. If you go back to Ashes, he made a Labuschagne bowl so that he can get a wicket of Joe Root. And here, he's not even allowing your official, conventional all-rounder to bowl enough overs.
Yeah.
What is happening? Tim Payne doesn't make such tactical errors. And these are tactical errors. They're not even strategic errors.
Stark, Hazelwood, and Cummins are by no means bad bowlers.
1,300 wickets among those 4 bowlers.
But when they do that barrage of short ball bowling at Sydney, at Gabba, what do you make of that?
It almost looked like, for me, Tim Payne kind of kept with his hands tied and his shoelaces tied together. I mean, if you went back to the previous series, the 18-19 series,
Right.
where India toured Australia, you saw a different Tim Payne. I mean, it's a very intangible thing. You can only kind of feel it. Someone else is not allowing them to kind of express themselves. That's the word. They were not expressing themselves. The way, even when Sundar got out to that reverse sweep,
Yeah.
you didn't see people coming in. You didn't see attacking fields.
Yeah.
Australia is known for attacking fields, especially when the match is at that level. They don't care if there are 1 run to win. They would attack you till the scoreboard says the opposition won.
Absolutely. And it started even before Sundar got out. If you notice when Mayank Agarwal got out,
Yeah.
Matthew Wade got that catch.
Yeah.
He was the only one who celebrated.
Yeah, everybody was like, yeah, okay.
Everyone else was like, what's going on?
Pant is there.
Yeah.
They're almost like... So that is what kind of was off overall, right? That Australian vibe. Again, we have to go back to the concept of the brand of cricket that Australia plays.
Yeah.
That was a miss. And it's not just us. It was also felt by ex-Australian players. Like Ricky Ponting was calling it out.
Yeah.
Glenn McGrath was calling out. Shane Warne was calling it out.
Yeah.
Everybody was kind of like, what the hell are these guys doing? And that's when I look at the dressing room. That means the root cause is not what's happening on the ground. If it was happening on the ground on, say, in one session, I mean, like, the opposition like demoralized you, so your kind of energies went low.
Yeah.
But if that happens across the series, which is what was to be seen, and even in the first test, technically, if not for that freak session, they were not really there.
Yeah.
So that's when I look at the dressing room and say, okay, what's happening there? Where is the so-called Australian spirit of playing the game? Why am I seeing it in glimpses? Why is it a decoration rather than the actual piece? So that's a huge difference in both the sides.
Yeah,
right?
it became clear that the reasons for the Australian misses were not really on the field, but those wrong decisions, those bad tactical errors, they were being made from the dressing room.
Yeah.
And if they're really being made from the dressing room, then obviously we're looking at one guy.
Mr. Justin Langer in this case.
JL.
JL.
Yeah.
But is it his fault? Do you think it is his fault?
I do.
Yeah, same here. I think
Yeah.
there is no argument there. So I think that's the end of the segment. Who's at fault for Australia not to perform up to their potential?
Because after the series, these things came out, slowly started leaking out in the news that the first, the leak came out was during the lunch hour, these bowlers were already being told that you have to be bowling in this specific area of the pitch.
It's not even being told to Cameron Green, who's debuting, right? He's not being told to Labuschagne. It's being told to the prime attack.
Cummins, Stark, Hazelwood are being told where to bowl on the pitch at a certain time of the day. It is laughable. And to put things in context, like even before this news article came out, for anyone listening, just as soon as the series ended, Brute and I were talking about the series and we both immediately agreed that this fuck up was happening in the dressing room.
Yeah. I will also partly credit this kind of theory was getting more into reality to the documentary that they make, the test, especially how 87% of the documentary was more of a personal documentary of Justin Langer.
Yeah.
What he felt, what his wife was feeling, what he spoke to Steve Waugh, and how did he rope in Ricky Ponting and all those exaggerated emotions of his in the dressing room.
It was Justin Langer, the hero, featuring these extras.
Yeah, extras.
The Australian team.
Yeah, who were given very few lines.
Yeah. That was a very revealing documentary, which I think it was made for the reasons of positive PR for the Australian team, but the end result tended to go the opposite way. That if you actually observe what is going on in that documentary, it's not a very good picture.
The
that
sad
is
part,
being painted.
I remember we were having this conversation, right? When you didn't watch the series by then, or the documentary by then. And I was like, dude, if you watch the documentary, you'll get a very airy feeling about, I mean, dude, these are international players.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing? Yes, you are like an ex-Australian legend of sorts, which I don't think Justin Langer is. If people are claiming it, it's their opinion.
But
I don't
he was in
consider
the
it.
gang.
Yeah, he was just like, I always, how I perceived Justin Langer. He's a guy who laughs for the boss's jokes, even if he doesn't get it. Justin Langer always looked like that guy. And he'll then come out to his other colleagues and give this emotionally motivational speech saying that, dude, the boss is the greatest guy ever. Like the chamcha kind of a guy. Justin Langer has that face.
Yeah.
The first indication, some of the things that stood out was how he was dealing with the senior players. Like Finch, Khwaja, Nathan Lyon, Tim Payne himself being the captain. The way he was dealing with them, the conversations, the tone he was using, the overall thing, right? The narrations he was giving, those monologues he was giving.
Yeah.
It was so bad that even after the test series, when he used the exact same line that he used in the documentary, when he said like, if a country of 1 billion people,
my God, yeah.
right? When he gave that sentence, I'm like, couldn't you have thought of another line? Like, do you realize we have like Amazon Prime in India too? So all that put together, I felt that this will kind of boomerang on him. This is something I go back to Saurav Ganguly. He strongly says that coach is a miscoined term. You don't coach at international level. You coach at school level. So manager is more apt in the cricket game. But this guy was exactly opposite for that.
I just want to paint the clear context for anyone listening to this, which is as soon as the series ended, Brute had by then watched the Amazon Prime documentary.
Yeah.
And I had not watched it by then, but still we both came to the same conclusion that the root cause of their fuck-ups is with the coach. Then, even by then, no one was talking about Langer. It was all about, Matthew Wade screwed up. Joe Burns screwed up. All this nonsense.
Tim Payne missed out on the stumping. Payne dropped catches.
Should Tim Payne be retained as a captain?
Yeah.
It's all nonsense. Of course he should be retained.
Who else is there? My question is, who else does Australia have? Tim Payne is probably the most sorted. Yes, he had a bad series, but come on, look back at his record, man.
Yeah, and you can see it was not all Tim Payne's fault, and that's what we're trying to get at, which is up until the first article came out from Sydney Morning Herald about players not being satisfied with Justin Langer, there was no mention of Langer at all.
Yeah.
And that article comes out, and of course, by the time we release this, probably more stuff will come out. But that article was one of the funniest articles I ever read.
Which was an irony. Because the only guy who was talking on behalf of the team was Justin Langer. And somebody should have thought, like, why is this guy even talking? I want to hear Tim Payne say what went wrong. Tim Payne is coming and apologizing for the banter he did.
Yeah.
Steve Smith is coming and accepting that, Ashwinism in my head.
Yeah.
Labuschagne is coming and saying that, Gill is a brilliant player, or like Siraj is a fantastic bowler, blah, blah, blah. Why is Langer speaking on behalf of the players? How did anybody miss out on that?
It's strange that so many people missed out on this. And that's what I'm trying to underline, which is that Sydney Morning Herald article. It first of all revealed the fact that these bowlers were being told that at lunch hour you have to bowl at a certain place. The other thing...
Because on that Muhurtam, see, Justin Langer is a strong...
The planetary alignment.
He is a strong, astrology believer.
Yeah. But the other thing that came out in that article was how Justin Langer stopped a player from taking a cheese toast sandwich in his pocket onto the ground. And Brute, you're a close follower of the game.
Yeah.
What happens to a kookaburra ball when you rub a cheese toast sandwich on it?
If I was Justin Langer and I saw somebody taking a cheese sandwich,
exactly,
what I would do is I would send somebody and say, dude, ask him to fucking not take that sandwich. I wouldn't go myself and kind of do it in front of everybody. Or
maybe the captain?
Yes, the captain for sure. I would have said, like, quick chat, come here, check his pocket.
Because do you know we have an issue with foreign objects?
Yes.
On the field?
Reputation is at stake.
Yeah.
Already.
Please, no foreign objects.
And you're the captain. If not anybody, you will be fired. So, there was a way to deal that situation.
Yeah,
right?
It was Manas. After this article came out that players may be dissatisfied with how Justin Langer is handling things, Justin Langer's first instinct to react to this was not to actually take that to heart and get together with the team and try to rebuild, reconstruct. First, he gets on the WhatsApp group and he says, don't leak.
These kind of
Stop
things.
leaking. And that leaks out.
Yeah.
The fact that he said don't leak leaks out. And then he comes to the media and says, it's a wake-up call for me.
Yeah. I've been sleeping. I should have seen my own documentary to realize, because I've already done all this.
Yeah.
Like 2 years back.
Yeah. He says... He comes now and says, this is a wake-up call for me. Well, brother, if you watch that documentary, there were so many red flags in that documentary itself. There was one moment where, of course, the famous moment where Usman Khawaja said, the guys are intimidated by you. They feel like they're walking on eggshells. Then in the nets, they had a huddle where Khawaja kind of pushed back and said, there's so much negativity. You're just going on saying negative things. Then there was another honest feedback session among the team in the
where again Khawaja kind of spoke on behalf of...
No, it was not Khawaja actually. I think it was Finch. I think it was another series after that where Finch was a captain or something. And they were taking feedback. He was saying, the guys do appreciate when feedback is given, when, someone makes a mistake. It's helpful to tell them what the mistake is.
Yeah.
But it also helps to have some positivity every now and then.
Yeah.
Which means it's been constant negative. So that is one thing. All these red flags were there. Yeah. Second, he paints all the walls of their dressing room with all these slogans. Elite honesty, elite integrity. Put on your elite pants, hit elite shots, wear your elite helmet. Man, if everything is elite, then what's the value of elite?
See, the thing, he did a mistake. Let's be, he's a human, bogus. Justin Langer should have appointed Boria. And all it needed was add please. Please.
Tell me, please, what you did wrong. Please tell me, David, please tell me what you did wrong.
If those slogans would have been, please wear elite pants, probably the players would have followed it. There was no, politeness to his request.
It was more like,
the magic word. It was more like an order. He should have made it more like a request, which Boria does really well.
Yeah. Manas, please. Stop taking elite sandwiches on the elite ground.
Oh, my sweet life. I mean, yeah, that's where the whole thing fell apart for Justin Langer. He didn't take help from...
Throughout the documentary, he was giving speeches after speeches to the team about how to process things like a defeat.
The worst part is he repeated those speeches in the interviews he's giving in the documentary. I'm like, we just heard what you said. Why are you repeating on a one-on-one? We don't want it. It was so horrible.
And for a guy who was giving them so much gyan on how to process things like defeat or a bad performance, he himself was not able to take a defeat.
There was this season, there was the series against England, I think it's the Ashes, when he called in his old friend Steve Waugh, or his mentor, as Justin Langer says. Now, let's be honest, Steve Waugh is probably the most decorated Australian captain.
Yeah.
Right?
He has a statue.
He's extremely respected by his own brother to start off with.
Yeah.
And you saw players being more comfortable with Steve Waugh.
Absolutely.
Talking to Steve Waugh than to Justin Langer. Whatever conversations they were having with Steve Waugh, which later followed with Ricky Ponting, where he also kind of went on a consulting basis.
And Gilchrist also.
And Gilchrist.
Yeah.
Gilchrist, okay. See, Gilchrist comes across as a guy
as a friendly guy.
Who's a very friendly guy.
Yeah.
Steve Waugh comes across as a very intimidating guy because of his stature, his persona, the kind of attitude he had when he was playing, all those things, right? And still, everybody was so comfortable going and speaking to Steve Waugh while Justin Langer was at the table. That's the biggest red flag. He knew where the answers were. He knew who was going to help him out. He had all the resources, everything cut out. He just didn't take anything.
Aaron Finch does not take DRS on a ball that he should have probably taken DRS.
Yeah.
He comes back already pissed off that he got out early because he's trying to reverse a spate of bad performances. Yeah. And then he's told very politely by Tim Payne that...
Oh, that was a beautiful incident. By the way.
He was very politely informed by Tim Payne in the dressing room that
you missed out by that much.
And he's even more pissed off.
Yeah.
And then Justin Langer comes storming into the room.
What happened? What the fuck happened?
Finchy,
what the fuck happened, Finchy? And even before Finch completes his sentence, JL in his trademark disgust.
Yeah.
And it's disgust.
It is
the
disgust.
Word is disgust.
It is disgust.
Because it was not disappointment. What Tim Payne showed was disappointment.
Yeah.
Right? What Justin Langer showed was disgust. And the eerie part that I was talking about was the way the dressing room everybody dispersed.
Yeah.
The moment Justin Langer barged in, everybody dispersed.
And to finish what you were saying, because that was a very important part where Justin Langer came storming into the room asking him what the fuck happened. And Aaron Finch is explaining what was going through his mind. And even before he completes his sentence, this guy in disgust just turns around and walks away.
Yeah.
And it's just, that's how you treat a player like Finch. He's a senior player.
I mean, like, the documentary should not, they can easily change the name from test to what you should not do as a manager. Like, it can be like a antithesis of what is a good manager.
Seriously. And the other thing where Headingley test where Nathan Lyon fumbles that run out where they could have won the match.
Easy.
There is video online of Justin Langer's reaction in the dressing room where he just jumps up from his stool. Kicks the dustbin. Everything flies off. And then as he's putting the things back in, sums us up pretty well, boys, because the commentary is saying Nathan Lyon has fumbled, Australia has fumbled, all that stuff. Now imagine what effect that has, because obviously after the players come back, the people who are there around Justin Langer, they're going to tell them how he reacted.
It's like a classroom environment, right? The moment the players are coming back, already disappointed and probably pissed off, because see, they put a lot of onus on their own performances. These are international players, right? They came to that stage by challenging themselves, and by being critical about themselves.
And Lyon especially is a champion at heart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because even when you saw through that documentary, he celebrates the team so much. Yeah. And he's the guy who's making those speeches before they sing that song.
Right.
And you can clearly see that guy lives and breathes for the team.
Yeah.
And for that guy, you also saw what happened when JL called the team back.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm going to play back some moments. And there you saw Lyon cringing. And then immediately it cuts to Lyon's talking head sequence where he said, I've been playing that moment over and over again in my head. I didn't really need to see it again. Yeah. And that was a horrible moment.
Yeah. Positive enforcement.
Yeah.
That's what is missing, I feel.
And the biggest example for that in the documentary was whenever something positive happened, JL just comes in the room. Boys, that was great. I don't know what to say. That was just fantastic. Great performance. You deserve a rest. Go ahead. And he walks out.
Exactly.
One line.
Which is what I feel, if you recollect, when we were decoding 36, this was my big question. What was the conversation between the management and the ballers?
Yeah. So whenever something positive happens, one line out of Justin Langer and he walks off, take rest. But whenever anything negative happens,
it's just a rant.
Oh, this is a rant. camp now.
He's like an angry wife.
It is Nautanki and throwing things and Finch, what the fuck? And,
The disgust. Worst is disgust. You can't be disgusted with your own players. That's absolutely unacceptable.
And calling your players to a room, projecting the last part of the match where they lost, and then just dissecting, peeling the skin, cutting through slowly and pulling it back and blood coming out.
Yeah.
It's just, that's crazy. And on the other side, what do you have? Ravi Shastri, cancel practice.
Yeah.
In the night, we're going to get together for dinner and we're going to play dumb charades.
Yeah.
Look at the contrast.
Exactly. What is the result of this, Bogus? How will this change the game of cricket overall at that stage? What do you think will happen?
I think it is a slow corruption in the Australian system that they really need to address fast, because all these media articles that are coming out about players being dissatisfied with Langer, there are counter articles coming out. Smith is saying Langer is great, I support him. Manas is saying Langer is great, I support him. And Michael Clark is coming out and saying that was a cheap move. Like, if you have complaints, you should go directly to the source and talk rather than coming out of the media. You should take a hint that if that is not happening and they're coming out to the media like this, that means that the direct move is being blocked.
Yeah.
There's
no
denial.
Way.
There is denial.
There's denial. And that's the worst. Champions don't live in denials.
Yeah. And there's clear denial happening there. So Australian cricket needs to save their own brand. They need to do either one of two things. Either go to Langer and say there is a clear problem, there is enough evidence for it in the test documentary as well.
Yeah, so they have to rewatch that documentary as a team.
That's it.
And everybody will be like looking at Langer and like, didn't get that, huh? Couldn't decode that shit, huh?
Yeah. Use your elite eyesight.
Yeah.
But either you accept it and you fix it and stop giving us PR talking points like, oh, it's a wake-up call and all that stuff.
Yeah.
You either fix it, be humble, accept and fix, because apart from this, everywhere else, they still tend to agree that you're a good coach.
Yeah.
So you continue to be a better coach like that, or you change the coach.
Yeah, block the whole switch is sinking the ship, right?
Yeah.
It's better for him, it's better for the team or the game in itself that Australia takes so much of pride in.
And it's just that because right now all indications are looking like they're trying to sweep it under the carpet a little bit.
Yeah, which is very unfortunate. And they're losing leash very fast, or the hold on their position, because the reality at the geopolitical scenario of the cricket game is you have New Zealand, which is repeatedly proving to be a tough competitor.
Yeah.
You have England, which is debunking all the jinx it has by winning a World Cup, winning like series outside their continent in subcontinent conditions.
Great bunch of players.
Right. And extremely talented players, right?
Yeah.
Once again, young team, pretty strong. And then you have India.
Mother India.
Which is not just financially strong, but it is somehow figured out to get its act together and started producing talent which they cannot even probably use enough. So that's the kind of bench strength. And this series is a testimony that Team India A, B and C are equally strong enough to defeat any team in the world. That's the kind of bench strength you're talking about.
Yeah.
And on top of it, they are running one of the most successful T20 franchises, which is attracting all kinds of talent from across the globe.
Yeah.
And on top of it, the clout that BCCI has. Just today, maybe they're not doing a strong PR, but it's just a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So soon, probably that baton of being the best antagonist will slowly might shift to India.
Yeah.
Right? The signs are already there. And already, as history quotes, all these teams, the English teams, the so-called Australian teams, South Africa, you name the strong teams, right? India has always been the final frontier. So already there are stats and history supporting India to be one of the best antagonists. All they have to start doing, which they already started doing, is start winning abroad.
Yeah.
So Australia is checked 2 seasons back to back, which is enough to carry for another 10-15 years. You have England to check. South Africa already looks like a depleting side today. Pakistan might never happen. West Indies, again, I think it's a cakewalk for India today, considering the West Indian talent today.
Yeah.
Sri Lanka, Bangladesh are basically holidays.
Not in a good state.
Right?
Yeah.
So all they have is England, which is probably currently the most formidable side that can give a challenge to India.
And New Zealand.
Sorry, I so forgot. New Zealand.
Yeah.
But again, New Zealand, somehow we have a decent record in the recent past.
Didn't
in the last
we lose the last
3-4 years.
series we played?
Yeah, but again, it's England and New Zealand. Probably there are two more. South Africa also. But the thing is, India soon is looking like a team which might neutralize venues.
The dynamics of the game are changing. The character roles are switching.
Yeah.
And India...
I almost forgot. Just want to add another point. Never before that happened in India, which is happening now, is India somehow has managed to have an unbelievably high potential lethal pace attack, which is extremely essential for winning abroad.
Which is what we've dreamed of since the time we were kids. Yeah, you may be a hero, but you live long enough, you see yourself to become the villain.
Exactly. We are quoting Christopher Nolan left, right and center.
Yeah.
Comparing Australia with Jokers, India to Batmans, and then slowly Batman is becoming Two-Face. Like, we're covering the whole trilogy.
But yeah, like you said, they already don't like us like the people elsewhere. They already have a slight dislike because of the clout BCCI has in the game. Now to match that, it's already tough to beat India in India.
Yeah.
And now India starts winning away, then that's just...
And the noise we take along with us.
Yeah.
The kind of crowd we pull in. So, yeah. So, final words, Bogus.
Well, that's about it. Let's hope Australia gets their act together and stop shying away from the problem, which is right there. There's a whole documentary to watch.
Yeah.
It's all there.
Please watch it.
Please watch it, Australian team.
Elite documentary. Please watch the Elite Test documentary.
And for India, I hope you do get to go ahead and become that villain because that would be fun.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of True Grit Down Under, our multi-part special series, ThyGap special on the Border-Gavaskar test between India and Australia, 2020-21. If you've stuck around with us for this long, thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. And also, we'd very much like to hear what you have to say about some of the points we've brought up, because these points were not really being covered anywhere else, to our knowledge at least. And we'd love to hear what you have to say. You can reach out to us on our socials. On Twitter, we are at ThyGap. On Instagram, at _ThyGap. And you can, if you're more articulate and more eloquent, then you can definitely send us an email at mindthygap@gmail.com. And with that, as we always say, ThyGap, subscribe.
And please, I beg you, share.
Please share.
Elite share.
Elite sharing. Hey, thanks for listening. You can follow this podcast on Spotify to get notified of new episodes every Thursday. We're also on Apple Podcasts for those of you who have partaken in the forbidden fruit. If you liked what you heard, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Say anything like the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. A rating and a comment really helps us out. It's free, and I'm told that's a great price. But enough about us, huh? Tell us about yourself. Leave us a comment. Our Twitter is @ThyGap and we are _ThyGap on Instagram.